On this week's video version of our podcast, Trail Cam Radio, we have Tanner Burns of West Virginia on the podcast. Tanner is currently only a handful of states away from being the youngest person to complete the U.S. Slam. Watch along as we talk all things turkey hunting. If you want to help us out, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Now let's get into the episode.
Lights, camera,
follow the trail.
ready to shoot.
If you know where a deer's bedding and you know where he's eating, that deer should be dead.
Camera!
If you're passive on a deer, what you're doing is you're teaching them.
I've got 30 bucks in the Michigan record book. Everyone but one has had at least one previous wound on his body. Some had as many as 4.
Trail Cam Radio from the guys at Exodus.
All right, we are live. We are in the shop with Tanner Burns. Had a little brain fart there. I got it.
Hey, we just met, man. I hold it against you.
Yeah, it's only been an hour. Full draw taxidermy.
Full draw taxidermy.
And we are somewhere near Buchanan, West Virginia.
Yeah, we're about 3 miles outside of town. I think we're still in the city limits, close to it.
And let me tell you, this guy has a shop full of some pretty awesome stuff.
The most impressive turkey display my eyes have ever seen.
Oh, by far.
I appreciate it, guys.
By far.
There's a turkey sitting behind Chad. It's called the Frankenstein bird. It has 2-inch spurs.
No, just shy of 2 inches, yeah.
I'm going to give them 2.
Yeah, I mean, they're close. They're close, that's for sure. I appreciate it, guys.
West Virginia.
I think I've got a deer with less of a blade than
that. Yeah, man, you can make a billy club out of those things.
It's just incredible.
Put it under your seat.
But one of the super interesting facts, and we won't go. We'll let you explain it. But
sure,
you're going for a super slam. You're 29 years old. You've killed in 42 different states.
Yes.
You got 600 books this year. Like, give us the background. Tell us what you do. Where you're from, and what inspired the obsession with turkeys.
Sure. So a little bit of background about where I'm from. I grew up in Moorfield, West Virginia, in the Eastern Panhandle, and I came out here to college in Buchanan. I went to Wesleyan, played a little baseball, and anyway, when I came to college, I started hunting a lot of the land out here, and I started making some friends, and I realized the hunting was way, way better than back home. So as soon as I came to college, I never went back home to hunt anymore after that. And then I graduated, found a job teaching, and stuck around. In between my undergrad for teaching and my master's for teaching, I'd always boiled skulls for people on the side. I'd always done European mounts on the side, even through high school. And, just like anything, I feel like once you start doing anything with your hands and creating things, it's just satisfying to do that kind of stuff. So I realized taxidermy would be a good side business with teaching. And so one summer I went out to Thompson Falls, Montana, went to taxidermy school, came back. I almost stayed out there. I remember calling my mom once and telling her I wasn't come back to finish my master's, and she informed me that that was not the case. I was coming, I was coming back, and I was finishing my master's. And I'm glad she talked me out of that, because that would have been bad to be a gypsy in Montana for a couple years. But anyway, I came back, finished my master's, opened up a taxidermy shop just from basically built it from nothing. I wasn't from here. Didn't know that many people here, and just started advertising, started putting stuff in Walmart, started doing really anything I could. That first fall, I think I took in like 16 or 17 deer to mount, and a couple other things, and that's probably been about 8 years ago now. And now we're pretty much a full-time taxidermy studio. I'm still teaching, so I basically got 2 full-time jobs, but we took in a little over 100 deer to mount this year, and 30 couple bears and bobcats, and close to 40 turkeys last spring. So it's been crazy. But a little bit about the Super Slam, which is I think what we mainly want to talk about. I've always been an avid turkey hunter, and when I was so a little bit of backstory on that. My high school gym teachers were like they were the town turkey hunters. They were like, you know, everybody talked about how good of a turkey hunter they were and all this stuff. And one of them was retired. One of them was the elementary school gym teacher, and one of them was the high school gym teacher. Well, every spring these guys would get together and they would go to Alabama. And they had like an old school turkey camp, man. And if you know anything about those old school turkey camps, it was not easy to get your foot in the door with them, especially for an 18-year-old punk senior, trying to get in with them. But anyway, we would sit around the gym and we would turkey call, and they would kind of teach me, and I would beg them, please let me come to Alabama, please. You know, and finally they agreed to let me come down. It wasn't even my senior year. It was into my freshman year of college, or maybe it was my senior year. It was one of the two. But they finally agreed to let me come down there. And I think the stars had aligned for me to start traveling and turkey hunting, because that was the spring of 2012. And for anybody that's listening to this, if you're a Southerner, if you know anything about the spring of 2012, it was one for the books. There was an early spring, so all the gobbling and things like that, it was just a banner year all across the country for turkeys. Well, the gym teachers had already gotten down there by the time that I was able to drive down. I missed a whole week of school to go down and hunt with them. But anyway, I got there, and the first day, they just hunted public land down there. It wasn't any private land. When I rolled up, all 4 of them had a dead gobbler in camp that they had killed that morning. And I was just like, oh, my God. And the way that I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, man, they just do this every year. And they said, oh, boy, you picked a hell of a year to come down here, because they are gobbling, and this does not happen often. So during that trip, as I guess fate would have it, if you watch the Pinhoti Project on YouTube, Chubbs or Kenny from the Pinhoti Project, my gym teachers befriended Kenny when he was about 14 or 15 years old. They met him in the woods down there in Alabama on National Forest, and they just took a liking to Kenny, and Kenny saw that they were really good turkey hunters. And I think at the time Kenny was struggling learning how to turkey hunt, and basically they took Kenny under their wing and showed him how to turkey hunt. I'm sure he picked up a lot of stuff on his own, but for probably like the next 10 years, he would go to camp with them. And by this time, Kenny was probably in his lower 30s or mid 30s. But I met Kenny on this trip, and I was hunting with some of the gym teachers. Their name were Rick Perkins and Josh C. and Roger Mungold. But anyway, I could just tell that Kenny was on a different level when it came to turkey hunting. And on the ride down there, the gym teachers, Josh had even told me, said, man, Kenny, if he hears a turkey, there's about a 98% chance that it's lived its last day if he hears it. So
That's crazy.
Yeah. So when I went down there, I'm just a young kid, and this is my first time, and they let me into camp, and I'm just thinking that's great. Well, about the 3rd or 4th night down there, Kenny just comes up to me and he asks me if I want to turkey hunt that next day, and I'm like, oh yeah, man, anytime I can go with you or learn anything, I would love to do that. So of course I took him up on his offer, and for whatever reason, man, me and him just meshed. And if you watch the Pinhoti Project, Kenny he's hilarious, man. He's not serious, but he is serious in the woods, and he knows when to turn it on. And he's probably the best turkey hunter in the country, to be honest with you. Anyway, and he took a liking to me on that trip, and we went hunting a couple days. We actually I killed my first Alabama bird. I killed a bird with Rick Perkins, one of the gym teachers, and then 2 days later, I went with Kenny when he asked me and killed another bird. So I got 2 birds on that trip. But I stayed in touch with Kenny that spring after I left there, and I would text him pictures of I hunted West Virginia and I think Ohio or something, and sent him some pictures, and we stayed in touch. And the next spring, they were gracious enough to invite me back down, and I went hunting with Kenny some more. Well, at the end of that trip, he invited me to South Dakota, to the Black Hills, to go hunting with him. And I had never traveled anywhere. I'd never been on an airplane, never, hardly left West Virginia. I didn't come from a family that traveled or anything like that. So when he invited me, of course I was going to do it, because I love to turkey hunt, and the thought of hunting a Merriam and things like that had always intrigued me. So I went on the trip, and we had a great trip and killed a couple turkeys. But once I traveled, I really caught the traveling bug. not just to hunt, but it's just fun to travel, man. And but to travel and hunt is really cool. So for years, I guess maybe 2 or 3 years after that, we would always take a trip out west. And I guess about 4 or 5 years into mine and Kenny's friendship, he decided to do the Super Slam. Well, Kenny was, he's 15 years older than me, and he'd been turkey hunting like a madman for years before I met him. So when he started the Super Slam, he already had, probably 18 or 20 states and had no intention. It was just he had turkey hunted that much that he had accrued that many states. And so he started really hitting it hard, like doing 8 or 10 states a spring. He probably did that for 6 or 7 years, and then he just finished it last year. But I would go with him on one of the trips out west, and we would do 2 or 3 states towards his slam. And before you know it, I had 7 or 8 states, and I still had no intentions of doing it, but he was always hounding after me to do it. And I said this in the video. That we just filmed of the shop. We were on a trip in New Mexico, and I'd been getting my butt kicked by the turkeys for probably 2 or 3 days. And it was during the first week of West Virginia season. I was, just being a little girl about it. And I was like, man, if I was in West Virginia, I'd be killing turkeys right now. And he just kind of snapped back at me and said, anybody can kill turkeys in the same state every year. He's like, you want to be a good turkey hunter, you go to a new state with a couple days and show, that'll see what you're made of. And when he said that, man, I got to thinking about it, and he was right. And I ended up sorting things out in New Mexico soon after that, and we went to Colorado. But I think at the end of that trip, I had 10 states, and I made my mind up that off season that I was going to hit it hard. And for probably 3 or 4 years after that, I did 6 to 8 states. I had one spring I did 11 states in 1 year. Yeah, man. And I think another year when I did 8 or 9, something like that. And, before you know it, man, here I am sitting at 42 states and, got 7 left. And it just seems like a big blur, because a lot of them, it's not like I've taken a lot of vacation to do this. A lot of these are weekend trips because I'm a school teacher. I don't have a whole lot of time off. I have days that I can use. And we have a spring break and things like that. But really, besides our spring break, I can take a Friday or a Monday off here and there. So these are all weekend trips, with the exception of, I usually get 2 week-long trips in the spring where I can go somewhere. And really, if I get a week off, I'm trying to do 3 states in a week, ideally. And it's a lot, like I said in the video, it's not a leisurely trip. You're hitting the ground running from daylight to dark. You're not going out to eat. You're living in the woods. A lot of times you're sleeping in your rental because we're doing it as cheap as possible. We're not hunting with outfitters. And, that's just the style that Kenny did it, and that's just the style that I've done it. And I think his passion in a lot of ways rubbed off on me. He's really like a dad to me. He was in my wedding. And you see Kenny on the Pinhoti Project. And Dave Owens, who, is the main guy on the Pinhoti Project, is a great turkey hunter. But I bet if you ask Dave, I bet that Kenny, when he started hunting with Kenny, I bet Kenny really started influencing how Dave Owens kills turkeys. Because, he's one of the best. He really is. And for the chance for me to be able to hunt with him and watch him for so many years, it was just invaluable information to see the way that he was hunting them. If I'd never met him, I would be hunting turkeys a lot different, and my success level would be way down. So the fact that I was able to hunt with him for a couple years was really just, you can't put a price on it. So
that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
There's a lot to digest there.
Yeah.
That's
just the logistics of working a 7 to 3 or 8 to 4, whatever a full-time job as a school teacher, and trying to hit 6, 8, 11 different states. Basically, the majority of them all coming on the weekend, like 2 days.
Right.
Is typically like one weekend, one state? Is that what that looks like?
Yeah.
Or are you trying to hit multiple?
Yeah. So if I have 3 or 4 days off, I usually try and make that a 2-dayer. But if I have a weekend, I'm trying to do one state. And there's been rare instances when I've been able to knock out a couple states in a couple days very, very quickly. But usually, yeah, if you can get a state in a weekend, that's a win. But you really have to have it together. You can't, if you're going to go somewhere for a weekend and hunt public land, you really have had to do your homework. You can't just go in blind because you don't have the time to go in and scout a place for 1 or 2 days and try and find birds. Really, if you're flying into somewhere and getting there at night, you need to know where a turkey is that next morning or have a really good idea of where it is. So you really have to study maps. You got to talk to biologists, and you got to talk to other people. The thing about the Super Slam is it's a close-knit community. Even though there's a lot of people doing it, it's a close-knit community. And anybody that's done the Super Slam, which there hasn't been that many, or anybody working towards it, to say you haven't had help, that would just be a lie, because people help each other out. You trade out info for different states. Now there's been, I would say, out of all of them, there's been quite a few states that I've done completely on my own, but there's been a lot more states that I've had info on. And it's not like, people are saying, go here and you'll kill a turkey. They've just saying they've heard a turkey here before. They may have killed one here 4 or 5 years ago. And a lot of time all you need is that little nugget. If I'll get just a little nugget like that, that'll get me started. Yeah. So.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
What you say you're studying maps.
Mm-hmm.
What on a map are you looking? Are you using topograph?
Yeah, I'm using mostly satellite and aerial maps. So it depends really on what part of the country I'm looking at. In the east, I'm looking for good hardwoods timber with maybe some fields scattered in. But really the timber is what you look for in most cases in the east. You want to look for nice drainages, little scattered fields and wood blocks, things like that. And you're looking how to access them. And, maybe you got a drainage you got to shoot up, or how you can access them without bumping turkeys. So it's a lot like deer hunting. You're working your way around and figuring out how to access this piece of ground without disturbing any turkeys. So you really have to study maps a whole lot. And then once you get out west, you're looking for ponderosa pines. You're looking for different things like that. If you're, hunting maybe the Black Hills or something like that in Arizona, I remember looking at maps like that and being, it looks like a desert. But a lot of times out west, if you find water, you find the turkeys. So if you just look for water with maybe pockets of timber and drainages, you'll find the turkeys. I know that's the case in Oklahoma or North Dakota. And once you get there and you find some turkeys and you mark it on a map, you can look at your satellite where they're at, zoom out of it, and you can see where the other turkeys will be.
Right.
All you got to do is mimic the terrain that you just found that one in. So if you screw that one up, it's easy to see. And maybe somebody gave you a pin of where turkeys were. And if you look at that pin and see the type of terrain they were living in, you can really get you 2 or 3 other pins from that just by looking at the terrain on a map. OnX, man, is OnX Maps has really changed. It's great looking at OnX on a desktop, especially for public land. A lot of times what I'll do if I'm going to a new state, I'll look up the harvest data, and whichever counties, maybe like the top 5 counties, I'll get on OnX on my desktop and I'll find that county. And I'll turn the public land on for whatever state that is, and I'll zoom out of that county. And if you've ever looked at OnX on a desktop, that public land just lights up in that county. So then I already know I'm in a good county, even though they've killed that many turkeys in that county. That means there's a lot of turkeys there. So then I'll start looking at the public land in that county, start looking at terrain on each of those public lands, and go from there. But it's a system.
It is a system. But it's so similar to what an out-of-state deer hunt would be.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
I've never really thought about using public land, using OnX Maps for turkey hunting out of state, and what all goes into it. But it sounds like it would be what we would do in terms of deer hunting.
Yeah, I think the difference for us really is like when we go out. I'll speak for myself because I don't know about Cameron, but I have all the time in the world. Like during spring, like I have all the time in the world. I'm hunting 1 or 2 states.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't need to go look at maps. I'll just drive around back roads, roost some birds, go in the morning, do my thing. But when you're in such a time crunch and you're trying to be efficient, I think that's the biggest message here is like you're trying to do this as efficient as possible.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, like you're in the woods from sun up to sundown,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get after it to, move on, get one, tag a turkey and then move on to the next state.
Yeah.
I personally don't know, and inside my circle, I don't know anybody that's putting in that kind of prep work to go
right.
go kill birds.
Yeah, nobody would in their right mind would do that to go kill a turkey, right? You should see the look that you get in some states you go to, and you tell them how far you've came to kill a turkey, and they're like, "No, are you serious? You came this far to kill one of these turkeys?" Because out west, they really don't care about turkeys.
Yeah,
they think they're a nuisance.
I had that. So I took my first out-of-state turkey hunt last year. I went to Nebraska.
Yeah.
And we're at a gas station, and we're all wearing camo, and the guy's like talking to one of the farmers out there, and he's like, "Ohio plates, you guys rent that out here?"
Yeah.
And we're like, "No, we just drove out from Ohio to turkey hunt." He's like, "You did what?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're here turkey hunting. We have a different species," and they didn't even know
that
there was a different species at where we live, and he's like, "Man, there's turkeys everywhere out here." And we're like, they don't care about turkey hunting in the western states. It's kind of crazy because to me, as a young turkey hunter, I started my introduction to hunting was turkey hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how a lot of guys kind of get introduced because it's more vocal, you're more involved, and it's a little bit
not as much
more relaxed. Yeah, and you can it's more fun.
Mm-hmm.
The weather's nicer. And so I've always kind of had interest I've always wanted to shoot Merriams because I always thought they were the prettiest birds.
Yeah.
And so when I finally got out there to do it, and you talk to these guys, and they're like, "You have different colored birds?" There's 4 different.
These aren't everywhere.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool to hear your stories of being all around and kind of relating that back.
But. Yeah, my favorite thing is when you tell people back here, everybody in the East has this impression that the turkeys out West are so dumb. I don't know if it's because how they see them on TV or what it is, but I promise you get on a public land Merriam, any state out West, and if he's had any kind of pressure, there's nothing dumb about him. It's a hard turkey to kill.
Yeah, pressure's pressure.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a Alabama gobbler on public land, but he's still you're gonna have to have your stuff together to kill him for sure.
Yeah, I went out there. I was at an outfitter and didn't kill one.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, there are no pushovers, man, anywhere.
Yeah. I had another thought to that and I lost it.
What do you think about it? Quick question. What's your typical running gun setup? Okay. Shotgun, bow, what are you running, calls, all that?
So I'm only carrying 3 calls with me most of the time just so I can go as light as possible. And I won't even carry 3 calls if I'm in the East. I won't bother carrying a box call. I carry a glass call. A glass call is one of my main tools for striking turkeys. I don't know what your all's experience is with a glass call, but a glass call, if you learn to run it and learn to cut on it, you'll get gobbles that you wouldn't normally get, and a lot of them are just shock gobbles because it's so shrill. If you get really good at running a glass call, you can just hear your ears pop. It's so loud. When you're cutting on it, you can hear your ears pop, and it does the same thing to a turkey. And a turkey will shock gobble. And if you get proficient on a glass call, you'll get gobbles that you wouldn't normally get. But anyway, I'm always running a glass call. I've got a mouth yelper. I run a combo cut. But really, that's the only 2 calls I'm using most of the time. If I'm working a turkey from a distance, I'm always starting with the glass call. And as he moves closer in the shotgun range, I'm going to switch over to my mouth call. I actually have done probably 90% of my slam with a 20 gauge just because they're so light. You don't even know it's on your back. I started off by shooting Federal number 7s. Before TSS came out, I was shooting Federal number 7s out of my 20 gauge. And, when everybody jumped on the TSS bandwagon, I was hand loading them for a couple years before they were being manufactured. But now I'm shooting TSS number 9s out of my 20 gauge. And that's my setup. But I've killed turkeys at, around 50 to 55 yards with a 20 gauge, which is, all the rim you need. Yeah. People don't believe it, but if you see some of the patterns with those number 9s out of a 20 gauge, it's unbelievable. And as much walk as I'm doing, it just saves pounds on my back. And another thing that's a big tool for me is I run a red dot sight on top of my shotgun. I run a Burris Fast Fire 3 on top of my receiver, and I have it mounted in such a way. A lot of people don't do this, but I have a mount on mine that I can still see my bead under my dot. So if things were to go south, which has happened before, I still got my bead under my fast fire that I'll be able to shoot with. And I've got a couple different pants that I like, some lightweight pants. I'll run some Old Tom. Their new lightweight turkey pants are really nice. They're really vented. And I usually run a leafy suit on top, and I'll wear my leafy suit the entire year, and I'll just wear a t-shirt or long sleeve or whatever I need to. Maybe I'll put a hoodie on under the leafy suit, but I'll run a North Mountain Gear bottomland ghillie in the early season, and as things start to green up, I'll run a North Mountain Gear Obsession leafy suit up top, and that's a lot of my setup. And navigation, I'm always using Onyx. Trying to think of some other things here. I always keep a bag to carry my turkeys in, going back to the mounts and things like that. A lot of people don't realize how much goes in. If you want a pristine turkey mount, you really need to keep them in good shape. And I'm mentioning the bag with this because I have a turkey bag that's what, after I shoot my turkeys, I keep it in the back of my vest, and I keep snacks or extra layers or other gear in that bag. But once I get my turkey, I empty all that out into the back of my vest, and then I carry my turkey in the bag. And if I'm a couple miles in, like, I don't know how most people typically take their turkeys out, but if you haul a turkey a couple miles out on your shoulder, dude, you're dead at the end of it. So this bag, man, it's got 2 shoulder straps on it. You cross them over, you put them on there, you run, you have your bag over your right arm, put your gun in your left, and you can walk miles like that. And it makes pictures nicer whenever you decide to get your pictures. If you're getting a mount, your turkey's pristine at the end of it, and you don't feel like you've been in a fist fight at the end of the walk when you get back to the truck, man. So the turkey bag's a big part of that.
That is a pro tip.
Yeah.
That is a pro tip.
I'm trying to think of maybe some other things. Oh, boots. So boots, feet can ruin a hunt very, very quickly. Not so much in the east. Well, I guess in the east, but I ran Kenetrex for a long time. If you know anything about Kenetrex, they're made for, like, Rocky Mountain sheep hunting out west. They're just one hell of a stiff boot, and they're a great boot. But here more recently, I've switched over to Crispy, and Crispy, man, they're like wearing a tennis shoe. Yeah. They're not as rigid as the Kenetrex, but man, they're just comfortable, and they're great boots. And I'll run a super feet insole in those. In my feet, man, a nice merino sock. My feet will stay great all year round because, I'm putting in several miles every hunt. So the boots are an important part there.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's even in the whitetail space, there's more and more guys starting to gravitate towards those Western type boots.
I say that all the time. I don't know why those guys don't get more sponsorships in the East, man, because hardly anybody even knows about. Well, now they do more so than they did 5 years ago, but a lot of people don't even know about, those great mountain boots that are in the West. And I think the manufacturers are missing the boat by not getting more sponsors back here in the East, man, because there'd be a big market for it if people only knew about it.
Yeah, I just bought my first pair. I'm running Zamberlins.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good boot.
I bought those to go elk hunting. Mm-hmm. And then I wore them all deer season this year. So this is the best. Oh, yeah. My feet have never felt so good.
You throw your rubber boots in the fire.
That's exactly
I haven't worn them. Yeah.
That's exactly
I have not worn my rubber boots.
Yeah. Yeah, Kenetrex also makes, man, I got like long toes and maybe some circulation problems when I'm deer hunting. But, dude, my feet get cold. And when I was in taxidermy school, Kenetrex makes an ice fishing boot that's it's like rated for like -20. And I bought that boot, and like if I'm doing like all day sits in November or December, I'll put those on, man, and my feet stay toasty in those ice fishing boots.
That's what my
you wouldn't want to walk very far in them though. Yeah, but that's the way to go if you get cold feet.
Yeah, I think those are some. you guys should be paying for this information.
Right.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah.
but let's get into
Oh,
some.
I need to get my notebook out.
I know. Yeah, I'm gonna go back and listen to this.
Yeah.
I already took a note on the burris.
Fast fire, man. You never go back.
I'm not running any optics on my shotgun right now, and that's a huge mistake.
Yeah, it is.
And
it'll get you a couple more birds because
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about your cheek position. And if a bird gets you in an awkward position,
Yep.
man, you put the dot on his head and he's dead.
It's there.
You know, you
Yeah.
can shoot him one-handed if you need to.
Yeah, that is a huge
Yeah.
benefit.
We were just
Yeah.
talking about this maybe last week in the office, and I had to laugh because I have a old cheap-ass Mossberg 500. It's like $250
Yeah,
shotgun,
yeah.
and I got a $600 or $700 EOTech
EOTech, yeah.
sitting on top of it.
Yeah.
And I bought it for another gun, but
Ended up putting on that.
yeah, it was an AR build, and I wasn't going to use it. And I was like, you know what, this thing's been sitting in the cabinet for. I'm like, I'm just going to throw it on.
Might as well put it on there.
Use the damn thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're right, to your point. Like,
I tell people all the time, man, the sight, whether you're shooting a rifle or a shotgun or damn whatever, the sight is way more important than the gun. Spend your money on the sight because that's what's delivering the payload, so to speak. You get a good sight and the rest will take care of itself. It seems like.
Yeah, I missed 2 turkeys last year, and I think if
you had a red
if
dot.
I had a red dot, it would have been a different story.
Yeah. I just bought my my little boy's only 3 months, but I just bought him. I already got him a 410 as lifetime license. But
That's what Trey was saying.
oh yeah, I am starting him like every gun that he gets, whether it's a 22 or whatever. I'm putting that burris fast fire on it. That way, when he comes and he's ready to go, hopefully it's like second nature to him that the fast fire's on there. You know, the little 22 I bought him is just like a cricket or something. You know, something he can shoot when he's real little. But I feel like if I get him acclimated to the fast fire early, when he's ready to turkey hunt, hopefully it'll help him out in the long run.
I think you just helped me out. But let's get into some strategy. You've killed I have one more. How many turkeys do you think you've killed? You've killed them in 42 states. But
Yeah. I would say in the neighborhood of 100 or more.
100 turkeys.
Yeah, I would say so.
In 18 years, or 11 years, I mean.
You mean of traveling? No, like some of those turkeys came from West Virginia, but there's a lot of trips. You know, when I would kill a couple turkeys in the same state. You know, it might not be quite 100, but I would imagine somewhere around there.
That's impressive. So this is coming from a guy that's killed close to 100 turkeys. So when we get into some turkey strategy here, pay attention.
Yeah.
You were telling us a story of a bird in Nevada that you killed, and that's kind of an interesting story. So let's tell us the story to that and tell us what kind of strategy went into play there.
Sure, yeah. So I think a lot of people are under the impression that turkey hunting, you go out on a ridge at daylight and you give a big owl hoot and he gobbles and you go set up 700 decoys and call to him and he comes strutting out the ridge.
that's me.
Yeah. But rarely, you know, that works. Especially on private land, but when you're dealing with turkeys that might have pressure, or even on private land, that probably doesn't work all the time. So I feel like you have to be very adaptable and have a lot of strategies when it comes to turkeys. But the particular story you're talking about in Nevada, I didn't just use that strategy in Nevada. I've used it all over the country. It's probably one of the main things that I do. And so when I showed up in Nevada, the landowner had given 4 other people permission to hunt. And there's only 2 counties that even have turkeys in Nevada. And as fate would have it, it was a very late spring in Nevada that year.
And they only give one non-resident
yes, yeah.
tag.
And I didn't have that tag. I found a landowner through a friend of mine, and the landowner sold me his tag. So I was very fortunate to even be able to find that. So I didn't know he had all these people that were coming to hunt on his land. So I showed up there, flew into Reno, drove like 4 or 5 hours out to his farm. And as I was talking about, it was a late spring, so the birds had not even moved out of their winter flock. So there was about a flock of about 140, 130 turkeys all grouped together in this field. So I went up and talked to the landowner. He told me how many people were coming. I start panicking because I think I was there for 3 or 4 days, and I was going to try and do California at the same time. And so I debated on driving 9 hours to California, letting the people that were there hunt, and hopefully they got their birds and I would come back later and hunt Nevada before I flew out. But thank goodness the landowner says, why don't you just hunt the morning? And, if it's too crowded or things don't go the way you like it, then just go to California and you can come back. So it was already late that evening and it worked out. But I asked the landowner, I said, do you mind if I scout this evening? Well, when you had 130 turkeys in one flock, it doesn't take very long to find them. So I climbed up on this big bluff, and sure enough, this huge black blob is out there. So I'm glassing them, and they're strutting around. There's 30 or 40 gobblers in the flock. And I'm like, man, this is cool. Well, at the same time, there's 3 or 4 other people with binoculars watching them too, man. So I'm like, God, what a shit show. And, well, the good thing about it was that many turkeys have got to have a place to sleep. There was these 3 humongous trees on the farm where I knew these turkeys were going to roost. So sure enough, right before dark, all these turkeys flew up in the same set of 3 trees. I mean, these things might have as well have been a redwood. They were monstrous. All the turkeys flew up there, and of course, all the other guys are watching them. And I wasn't sure, the tactics that those guys were going to use. But as they flew up, I noticed a root ball almost directly beneath them because there's nowhere to set up on these turkeys. There's 3 trees. That's it. Well, this root ball happened to be directly under them and the only place to set up. So I go back to where I was staying at that night, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to do. And I'm just going to get in that root ball. I'm going to start my crawl several hours before daylight. And I'm going to get in under them and hope to shoot one as soon as it hits the ground. First off, you're not going to call in a flock of 130 turkeys. This is going to be a bushwhacking. And I'm not a purist turkey hunter by any means. If it's legal, I'll kill them, except for with a rifle. I don't care if I have to crawl on them. I don't care if I got to get in front of them. If I call them up, if I can legally kill them with a shotgun, that's how I'm going to do it. I don't have to call them in. I'm not one of those guys. But anyway, so this is going to be one of those instances. So I started my crawl. The great thing about out west, man, it gets daylight like 4 a.m. in the springtime. So it is some early. The turkeys out there, they have to run on E because they go to bed at about 11 p.m. and they wake up at 4 a.m. every morning. So anyway, I started my crawl at like 2:30 a.m., something crazy. And my crawl probably took around 45 minutes to an hour to get in that root ball because I was on all fours, no light, of course, just taking it a step at a time. I didn't even bring my vest. I'm just crawling with me and a shotgun and a mouth yelper just in case, I need it. So I get tucked into this root ball, and it's probably about 45 minutes before they wake up. And, there's so many turkeys, I could hear their droppings hitting the ground. They're probably about 15 yards beside me or above me. And when they woke up that morning, it was unlike anything I'd ever heard. If I had a GoPro there, probably video me, man. There was probably a big smile on my face the whole time because at that point, it didn't matter whether I killed anything or not because there's 40 gobblers just hammering, They've gobbled 100 times and they're just drumming in every direction. And it was it was great. And I couldn't see anything because I couldn't dare turn my head because when I laid in the root ball, I had to lay facing where I thought they were going to land. So all this was happening behind me. So I'm not hearing any of it. And I could hear them start to get antsy up there. So I knew they were about to hit the ground. And so I flipped my gun off safety, and a couple gobblers hit the ground about 20 yards in front of me, and ended up shooting one. And there was a couple guys on each side of me, and I'd seen them come in that morning, seen their headlights and stuff. And one guy, I saw him on the way out, and he was, pretty nice about it. But, oh, God, that flock flew every which direction, which I probably did them a favor because it was like busting up a fall flock that they went after that. But, yeah, man, and that's not just a strategy I use anywhere. Dave Owens released a video on this about 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about a roosted turkey. And a lot of people think if you roost a turkey, or what people consider roosted, is if you hear one and you know a general direction. Well, just as he said in that video, and just the way that I've been hunting since I've met those guys, you want to know what limb that turkey is on. So if I hear a turkey gobble in the evening, I go towards that turkey, and I will get within 70 or 80 yards of him that evening. and I'll pick up my setup for that morning, that night. So I'll wait till the cover of darkness that evening, slip in, well, maybe you can see just a little bit, and figure out how I'm going to go in and hunt that turkey the next morning. But if you wouldn't do that and you would just get a general direction, knowing what limb he's on and being within 40, 50, 60 yards of a roosted turkey at daylight, man, you've upped your chances big time. And I'll tell you another secret that happens when you're hunting mountainous country, and this is not true at all times, but I don't know if I want to put a percentage on this, but if a turkey is roosted on the side of a hill, which a lot of times they are in hilly country, they will pitch into the ridge. They won't pitch down off of it. Now there's exceptions to that, but if you can know what limb a turkey's on and be able to get in a setup like that, if you get on the high side of the ridge above him, a lot of times he's going to pitch into that ridge. So a lot of times you kill that turkey without making a sound. And if I get that close to a roosted turkey, I'm not calling to him in the morning, because there might be different instances for this, but he knows what he went to bed with that close to him. And if you got some jackass over there making hand calls 40 yards from him, he knows better, right? So I really don't call to that turkey until he hits the ground, and I let him get acclimated, and I see what kind of mood he's in. And then if I need to work him, I'll start to work him. But if I'm that close to a roosted gobbler, very seldom, if ever, unless he's got some hens with him, do I call to him. If I know that he's got a couple hens with him, I might get my name in the hat and see what happens. But that's a strategy that's killed a lot of turkeys, knowing what limb he's on and going in that night and picking out your setup. And even if you got to cut some limbs, pick out your tree, everything that night, drop a pin exactly where you're at. And when you're getting that close to a turkey, you're going in with no light, no nothing. So, and a turkey's used to hearing things under him at nighttime. There's things going under him all night long. So your approach to him in the morning, that last couple 100 yards might take you an hour, but you're just taking it step by step. And if you do that early enough in the morning and take that step-by-step approach, you'd be amazed how close you can get to a turkey while he's in the tree, for a setup.
I've never put that together, like a turkey being used to stuff walking underneath it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, don't flip your light on, though, because then the game's over.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
as far as as after the day goes on, strategies, if I don't have a turkey roosted, I'm cutting ridges and I'm using my glass call, and I'm cutting on my glass call trying to strike one. And depending on where I strike one, I like to work a turkey from, about 100 yards from him or even closer if the terrain will allow it. I like to get in their bubble. If I know a turkey's really, really hot, and I know he's going to cover some distance, then I might, it's so hard to say because the setup just depends on it. But I like to get in their bubble if I can. But the rest of the morning, I'm cutting ridges, trying to strike them with a glass call, just trying to cover as much ground as I can, trying to find one. And if I find a turkey that's got hens that won't come to me, I'm using the terrain, and I'm going to get on my belly, and I'm going to use whatever I can, and I'm going to go to him and kill him spot and stalk style. If you can't call in the hens, then it's just about being a good woodsman and getting on all fours and trying to get him within shotgun range. I've killed half the states on my Super Slam. I've killed a lot of them on my belly, just sneaking up on them. And people think a turkey is so hard to sneak up on, which they are. But if you use the terrain and you're really strategic about your movement, you can get in shotgun range of them without calling. I think there's a big, long mathematical equation for killing a turkey, and I think things that go into it are things like woodsmanship, being able to use a map and being able to get around in the terrain. But I think everything has a percentage of it. But if I had to put calling on there, I would say calling is 10% of killing a turkey. It's a very small part of the equation. It's getting where he wants to be. It's knowing the terrain. You don't have to be a great caller to kill a lot of turkeys, because by no means am I a great caller. It's just, maybe not even that great of a turkey hunter. I just spend a lot of time doing it. You know, if you don't kill one by 9 o'clock, there's no going getting biscuits and saying, well, maybe we'll hear one tomorrow morning. It's staying out there all day and just hoping you'll find one. And I think the biggest part of the equation to kill turkeys I was talking about is just persistence, just being a madman. And just like anything else, man, if you put in a whole lot of time towards it, it'll usually work out itself. And that's not just when you get there hunting. That's looking at maps. That's doing your info. That's doing your research with the DNR and the harvest data months leading up to it. It's just putting in the effort. We'll kill them more times than not.
I got a question, and I think I know the answer to it, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Is there ever a point where you're working a bird and time's going on, you don't have the terrain to your advantage, it's going to be low odds of you being able to, spot and stalk a bird. Do you ever give up and just move on? Or is that is that not even an option? Like when you're on a bird, you're on them until you kill them.
Yeah, it depends. But a lot of times, if I can hear one, especially in a new state or with limited time, all my energy is focused on him because I don't know if there's going to be another one. So it's hard to leave one when you don't know if there's going to be another one. Now, if you hear one gobbling in the distance, that's different. But a lot of times if I find one, I'm doing whatever it takes to kill him. And like you said, if I get in a situation where I know there's no terrain and I know I'm probably going to bump him if I try and spot and stalk him, I will watch him and stay with him the entire day until he flies up that night. And I'll stay with him that long, and I'll go back in the next day, use the cover of darkness to get as close as I can, and start the game over the next day. But if I know there's a low percentage chance of me, if I know I'm going to bump him or something bad's going to happen, I will stay with him that whole day until he flies up and try again the next day.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
live to hunt another day.
Yeah, man. It's just hunting smart.
Educating them.
Yeah, and a lot of times hunting that style, you can be too aggressive. And I'll bump turkeys a lot, trying to get that close to them and trying to do that. I've bumped a pile of turkeys, but I tell you, if you start doing it, you'll kill a whole lot more than you bump eventually.
Yeah, that's something that I've started doing more. The way I was introduced to turkey hunting was sitting in a blind and waiting. And you get talking to guys and you get to hunt with guys and you're like, that is the most boring thing in the world.
Like deer hunting.
Yeah, and that's not what you're out there to do.
Right.
So like the last couple of years, I started doing a little bit more running, gunning, and it's been, number one, way more fun, and number two, way more successful, faster.
Yeah. Once you start putting boots on the ground and hunting like that, man, it's way more enjoyable for me than sitting in a field with a big flock of decoys and submissive hen and full strut gobbler and all that. I mean, to each his own. However you want to kill a turkey, it's just not. This is not for me.
Not your style.
I don't care how you kill them. Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. I have one more question. The infamous hang up. You have a bird that's 80 yards away and you just will not commit. What goes through your mind at that point? What's step one, step two, step three?
Are we assuming he's got hens or he doesn't have hens?
He does not have hens.
Does not have hens. Okay. So if you're working a bird and he's closing the distance and he hangs up on you, like you said, 70 or 80 yards, a lot of times you have called too much to that turkey and he's expecting you to come to him, because naturally in the springtime, the gobbler doesn't come to the hen. The hens go to them, and you'll see that a lot of times if you spend enough time in the woods, they go to them. So what's happening there is a lot of times he's expecting her to cover that last distance. And in that case, if you just quit calling and just sit there silent for 15 or 20 minutes or however long it takes, you'll kill him. He'll break. He'll come looking. And if he doesn't break, he's going to go to a new spot, and 9 times out of 10, he's going to start gobbling again, looking for a hen. And it might have been a bad setup. He might not have felt comfortable coming where you were at, or he might have known that, there's not usually hens over there. Or that's not a spot I feel comfortable. A lot of times if you try him from a different angle and set up on him again, the hang up on him happen. He'll come, he'll come just like a turkey should. So a lot of times I'll give him the silent treatment. If that doesn't work, he's going to start gobbling again if you just stay with him. Try him from a different set. Try him from a different angle. Get on your maps. Get on the same level with him, something that looks good that he would feel comfortable coming to. And a lot of times that'll do it.
That's helpful. That's how I killed my bird last year in Pennsylvania. I had this. Me and my uncle were on a new property. We never turkey hunted it before. We never stepped foot on it before.
Mm-hmm.
We're walking around trying to find a bird, and it seemed like a mile away I hear a turkey.
Yeah.
And it's the only bird we heard.
Yeah.
So we're like,
you gotta go.
we're going after it.
Mm-hmm.
That turkey gobbled for an hour and a half consistently. That's how long it took us to get to him. So we
That's
knew
a great one.
exactly where he was at because he gobbled
Yeah.
the whole time. And we're thinking like, oh my God, we're gonna get up here, hit the pot call, and he's gonna just come on in on a string.
Yeah.
That bird was on top of this ridge, and he was just strutting. He was back and forth.
Trying to gobble up a hen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back and forth, back and forth. So I heard him, and I could kind of figure out what he was doing. So my uncle's like, I'll drop back a little bit, and we'll try to
Pull him
get,
to you.
yeah.
Yeah.
That didn't work. He's still up there just back and forth, back
He
and
wasn't
forth.
gonna leave his strut zone.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what we're thinking to ourselves, like, what do we do? And we've kind of came up with this plan, and as we're thinking of this plan, we're not calling, right?
Yeah.
We're silent.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, okay, when we hear him get further away, I'll move up 10 more yards.
Yeah.
Then he comes back, shut up. He's going to go back further away. I'll move up 10 more yards. And
Yeah.
as we're talking about this, my uncle's like, there he is. And he broke.
He broke.
we were
In the middle of this, yeah.
Because we were silent. We weren't calling.
You're trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
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 I've had that happen before, man. Yeah. A lot of times, if you call the hen in, sometimes you'll call the hen in if they got a hen with them or whatever. And a lot of times the hen will break and come to you, and they won't. But I will flush a hen or scare her off if I can. If I can do it without the gobbler knowing it. If you can get rid of the hen out of the equation, it'll turn out better for you. If you can flush the hen or get her out of there, it'll usually put the odds in your favor a little bit better. So I've waved my arms at a lot of hens when I knew the gobbler wouldn't be able to see her just to get her out of there, and it helps. It really does.
That's pretty cool, too.
Yeah. All kinds of little things, man, and every situation's different. And that's the great thing about turkey hunting. You never know everything about it. Every spring one does something different. You're like, my God, you crafty bastard.
Yeah.
and that's that's why you love them, I guess.
Yeah,
they can seem like the dumbest animal on the planet, and then the next time they can just seem like, God, they are just so smart or so wily. Just keeping that tree in between you, one time and not getting into range or slipping by you, just in the perfect spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
you've seen some pretty crazy things in the woods.
Yeah.
Turkey hunting.
I've seen turkeys do some crazy things. I've seen some fights break out, and it's hard to even think of. Every state, man, I could probably tell you something cool that happened there, or something cool I saw while I was there. But it's been great traveling over, and I've met so many great people and lifelong friends just through the turkey. And besides my family, my wife and my little boy, man, my world revolves around the wild turkey. It's crazy. I'm mounting them all fall and all summer, and thinking about them and putting them together and studying their anatomy, and then in the springtime I'm hunting them. But I think what a lot of turkey taxidermists don't have in common with me is a lot of those boys, they don't even hunt that much. They might kill 1 or 2 turkeys in the spring, but it's I'm always thinking about a turkey or thinking like a turkey. So I think that helped me in the taxidermy world, that I've always been so infatuated with the wild turkey as far as hunting. Again, Kenny, when I started trying to figure out how to mount a turkey, I'd send him some deer and some things like that. And I didn't even want to attempt to mount a turkey to begin with, because they're so intimidating as far as the mounting process. Like when you see it happen, you're like, oh my God, there's no way I can do that. And old Kenny said, man, anybody can mount a deer, mount a turkey, and then you really be doing something. So again, and I think that's what makes a good friend, man. Not only are they a good friend, but they're always driving you to be better, man. And that's really what Kenny's done with me in the turkey world. But so many other things, he's just always he's like a dad, man. He's always driving me to be better.
It's cool.
Yeah.
As we sit here amongst all your work, I look around and there's a blue ribbon hanging on that Nevada bird.
Yeah.
There's a red ribbon to the bird next to it. The
Yeah.
bird that we're sitting in front of, you just got back from NWTF with a second place in the Masters.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that you're doing, and for anybody listening to this or watching this on YouTube, not sure exactly when this is going to air, but you kind of walked through the high level detail in what you go through, in the process of mounting a wild turkey, and it was pretty damn elaborate. Like,
weren't expecting all that, huh?
I was not.
No, not nearly. And like, I guess personally, I'm probably a little bit ignorant to the entire process. I mean, we're ate up with whitetails for 9 months out of the year, and turkey's like
just something to pass the time.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't want to say that because it's more than that. But it's for me. I think
it's not your main passion.
It's not, but it's a time to go have fun.
Oh,
turkey season is
fun,
so
man.
much fun. Like, that's
in terms of fun.
Way more fun than
turkey hunting is way more fun.
Dude, you know what I like about it as opposed to deer hunting is you're not like hunting one mature particular animal. Like if he's got a long beard, bust him. You know? It's like, you're not waiting on the right one. If he's got a long beard and a full fan, drill him. That's awesome, man. I love that you don't have to be as picky. With deer, you're like, oh, God, he's only 80 inches. Another year will be nice. No, you don't do that. 2-year-old turkey, dead.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it.
I have some questions. There's been some things like brewing in my mind as I listen to you talk, and we're about an hour in, so we've already taken up just about your whole damn evening. But there are some questions I want to touch base on. What's your opinions on fanning birds?
So I will keep I'll keep a turkey fan in my vest as a last resort. A lot of times I'm hunting public land, it's not my first resort, but I will try anything. Like as we were talking about earlier, if I get a bird that I know I can't get any terrain on and I know is not going to come to the call, I will try to fan him. I'll stick the fan out there. I don't carry like a full gobbler decoy or anything like that, but I'll carry just a tail fan and I'll show it to him. That's all you need a lot of times. And I'll show it to him and see how he reacts. And a lot of times that'll work. It's one tool in the arsenal. To have a fan in your vest as a last resort. But more oftentimes than not, I've had it not work. So that's why I keep it as a last resort, not like one of the first things I do. Because there's a good chance, as many times as it does work, there's a good chance he's going to run the other direction as well and scare him off. So I would much rather just watch him and get in position the next day than push the envelope and fan him. But, if it's last day or, if maybe I've already killed a bird or something and I'm not really caring if I spook him that much, then, it's fun to fan him. Getting one running at you and shooting him 10 yards, that's awesome. but it can go south too.
Yeah. That's I've never done it, but you see all the footage of guys going out in these open fields and fanning birds, and it just looks so intense. Like, that's on my bucket list for this year.
Yeah, I would venture to say that a lot of those aren't happening on public land.
Well, that's what we talked about. We started talking. We mentioned that at the office, and it's like, well, we hunt a lot of public land, and even some of the private are small pieces where other people have access. It's like,
you really want to be going out there looking like a turkey.
Yeah, well, not only is it dangerous, the birds aren't going to tolerate it. If a bird gets any type of pressure, he's probably savvy to those kind of things. Well, a lot of places you see that it's on private land where the birds don't get any pressure and they've been coming to the same field for, a month or something. So you try and pull on that stuff on public land, you're probably going to get humbled pretty quickly.
Or shot.
Or shot, which is way worse than getting humbled.
So if you could pass on a couple tips to newbies or beginners, like what are
us?
Yeah, basically. What are, in your opinion, what are the three biggest mistakes new turkey hunters make?
Yeah.
And then I guess what would you do to counter those mistakes?
Okay. So I think the biggest thing when you're thinking about getting into turkey hunting, if you're listening to this and you've never turkey hunted, it could probably seem pretty daunting, is getting a mentor, man. Go with somebody that's done it and had a little bit of success and watch them and just be a sponge and absorb it. That's the biggest thing. You got to get a mentor, whether it's your dad or somebody you work with. Get a mentor to take you turkey hunting and show you the ropes, and pick, even if you're not hunting with them, just pick their brain to see how to go about it. Because I can remember when I first started and didn't know anything, man, and if I hadn't picked up somebody to hunt with, I'd still probably be just rambling around out there trying to kill, just hoping I got a shot at one every spring. So pick up a mentor if I had to get a tip. Another tip is I feel like people think that turkeys can just they can see through a brick wall. You can move on turkeys and you can get away with a lot of movement. If a turkey can't see you, or if you can't see the turkey, he can't see you. So take your time, get a good setup, get things situated. A turkey, he's got great vision, but if he can't see you, or you can't see him, he can't see you. So just take your time and make a good setup. And the third tip, man, you just got to be a madman. Just hunt them hard, just like anything else. If you want to be successful, you got to hit it hard and be almost a little bit demented about it. If you want to do good, man, it's just like anybody that's successful. You just got to spend a lot of time doing it. And once you do that, I think things will take care of itself. But that's probably the three biggest tips that come to mind right on the fly like this.
And if I've picked anything up from this conversation, I've picked a lot of things up. But in terms of tips that I've taken away, less is more when it comes to calling.
Yeah.
In your opinion?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
When you're close to a turkey, especially, less is more.
Yeah, well, take their temperature. You know, I'm getting aggressive when I'm trying to strike them. You know, when I'm cutting ridges and trying to strike them. But if I know the turkey's coming, I'm not pouring it on him the whole time. I mean, if he's coming, just
let him come.
Let him come. Yeah, you don't have to keep calling to him. Yeah.
So one other question just popped in my mind. You know, you're hopping ridges, trying to strike one up.
Yep.
You get one to gobble.
Yeah.
10, 15 minutes goes by. He gobbles again, and he's still, let's say, I don't know, he's still 2 ridges over. I have a hard time.
He hasn't moved.
In hill country, it's tough because it's like, where in the hell? Like, it's hard to pinpoint, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you don't have him roosted, I guess that goes back to your point to know where the hell he is.
Mm-hmm.
But how long do you go in those silent periods? Like, if you're not hearing him, if he's not responding, if he's quiet.
Yeah, I'll give it a good 20 to 30 minutes waiting on him to make his next move. Because if you got a turkey that you're calling to and he's gobbling and things like that, he's going to gobble again, whether he's in the same spot or he moves. You just got to be patient. So I'm going to give it at least 30 minutes, see if he's broke to come to my setup. But don't get antsy. Do not move until you get another location on him. So whether he's coming to you or he's moved off somewhere else to try and gobble up a hen. But then I'm switching my setup after that 30-minute mark, and I know where he's at, or I'll wait as long as it takes for him to gobble again because I don't want to bump him. I'll wait until he lets me know his location, and then I'll get on my maps and adjust my situation accordingly. But a lot of times people think a turkey is hung up. He's gobbling at everything you do. A lot of times he's not hung up. He's got hens with him, and you don't know they're there because you're in the hardwoods. You can't see them. He's got hens with him, and you can tell a lot of times maybe the hens will make a little call and let you know they're there. But you're fighting a losing battle a lot of times if a gobbler's got hens because it is very, very hard to get them to come off. They might drift a little bit, maybe 15 or 20 yards towards you, but they're not going to leave a grove of 3 or 4 hens. So in that case, you're just trying to get in front of them, trying to get some terrain on them, and just trying to get him killed like that. You know, it's not an easy thing to call a gobbler away from hens.
No, at the same instance of like, don't leave a bird to find a bird.
Yeah.
They're not going to leave a bird to find a bird.
No, they're not leaving the hens to come find you. In very, very rare cases, I've seen it happen a handful of times. But every time I do, I'm like, I'm kind of dumbfounded in the whole process.
What just happened?
Yeah. Last year, I had this bird in Texas, and I watched him cross this there's like a little gas line, and the hens went first. There was like 3 or 4 hens, and he hit that gas line, and I called to him, and man, he popped up and strut, and he let loose a gobble. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. At least he'll gobble and let me know where he's at, and I'll try and get in front of him. Man, he turned on a dime, and he just marched beautiful as can be, Rio, coming up that gas line. And I popped him at like 20 yards, but he just completely left him. And, man, I can tell you that's only happened to me 1 or 2 times. And that whole day I was like, God, I can't believe that just happened. and to know that he left him because I watched them go in there, and I watched him leave him. I was like, holy hell, that'll never happen again.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I think to wrap this up, Chad, do you have anything more?
No.
Okay. To wrap this up, let's do a quick series of treat it like a rapid fire.
Okay.
So I'll start with favorite state you ever hunted turkeys.
Idaho.
Favorite. Oh, hold on.
He's not ready for the rapid fire.
I was not expecting it to be so quick. What is your favorite thing about a turkey?
Oh man, my favorite. I love the head color that they can change their head on a dime, and that a head looks all drab in the fall and in the springtime, and all the blood rushes to it, and it's just elaborate. But man, turkeys are just badass. They're a raptor that lives in the tree and gobbles that that can be heard for miles in the springtime. I mean, man, I think people that are bit by it just gets in your blood, and man, once they get a hold of you, it's hard not to do it.
Yep.
So one of those two things probably.
Favorite species?
Oh, mountain Miriams. Yeah, mountain Miriams are my favorite for sure.
Do you have a bucket list hunt that you've not done?
I want to go kill a Gould's in Mexico. It sucks because you can't, just go kill one on public land. So you got to pay a couple grand to go kill one. But I would like to go to Mexico and kill one. Like to go to Canada and kill one when all this is said and done. And looking forward to going to Hawaii next year and killing one there. So those three will probably be on the bucket list for me.
What are the 7 states you have not killed in?
All right, so I got Arkansas, Oklahoma left. In the Northeast, I got Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. The only state I have in the West is Oregon, and then Hawaii. That makes it 7. So.
And you're going to –
6.
sorry to interrupt.
Six of them, yeah.
You're going to everything but Hawaii this year.
Yep, everything but Hawaii. So, barring any disasters. But the only state I'm, there's no guarantees, of course, but Arkansas is going to be tough. And I got 3 days to do it. So I'm going to be hitting the ground running in Arkansas. And, if it doesn't work out in a state or two, then, if I got to do 2 or 3 next spring, I still hope that I could finish it next spring. Because if I don't kill one in Arkansas, I'll go spend 2 weeks there next year and get it sorted out.
We'll be pulling for you. Last question. And I don't even know if you know the answer to it.
Okay.
You killed 49 birds or 49 states. What's next?
I'm going to go to some of the states that I've been to that I really, really enjoyed. And I'm going to take my time there, man. I'm going to spend 4 or 5 or 6 days and really take it in. And, a lot of states I've, just had a taste of, and I like to get a full drink of a couple of them.
That's cool. Kind of sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Have a
man.
leisurely. You said that these trips are not leisurely.
Yeah. That's
Kinda
another.
make it leisurely.
That's another bad thing about the super. Well, there's not a whole lot of bad things about it, man. But a lot of times you're in such a hurry, you're not enjoying the kill and the process and all that. And man, that's kind of bothered me throughout this whole thing. But I'm looking forward to just slowing down and taking it all in, because a lot of times I'm in a hurry, and which I don't like to do, but I always make sure that I take an hour or 2 after I kill one and just sit there in the woods with him and soak it all in, and after that the adrenaline's going to the next state.
That's cool. I think the coolest thing about it is kind of like you're 29 years old.
Right.
So everyone says like get your elk hunting out early.
Yeah.
And you're thinking like, man, I can't wait to slow down. You're going to be 31 when it's time to slow down.
Yeah.
It's not like you're 60s and you just want to go out and read a book in the woods and maybe kill a turkey. You're going to be 30 years old.
Oh, I pray to goodness that my kid, I would love to take him and do the slam. I feel like it's such a fine line getting kids interested in, and I hope I do everything right to get my kid interested. And I would love if I could drag him all over the country for the next 20 years and get him to do it. But
it's like you're doing it all over again.
Yeah, man, it'd be great. So hopefully that's next.
A little bit.
Hopefully that's next, man. Hopefully that's next. But who knows, man? Just going to slow down and look forward to taking my son hunting when the time comes. And man, just long live the wild turkey.
Cool.
That's super cool. So, for all the Trail Cam Radio listeners, where can they find more information about you? Follow you on social? Know about Full Draw Taxidermy?
Yeah, man. Instagram, Full Draw Taxidermy is my handle on there. We got a Facebook page, Full Draw Taxidermy. Website is www.fulldrawtaxidermywv.com. We got pictures of basically everything I've done. If you want to follow the slam this spring, Instagram, I post the Insta stories on all my trips and kind of follow along with the journey.
That's it. I look forward to it. I'll definitely be tagging along on those trips and checking the status of those 6 states. So, Tanner, can't appreciate this conversation enough.
I enjoyed it, man.
Inviting us into the shop.
Yeah, it's great.
The Whitetail Cribs edition of what you have going on here. So that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Tanner Burns.
Thank you, guys.